Let's give our 3 Distinguished Service Award recipients and all the awardees today another round of applause. It's now time for the big show. Are you ready? The main event. The Honorable Jeb Bush was elected the 43rd governor of the state of Florida on November 3, 1998, and was re-elected in 2002. Before becoming governor, Mr. Bush served as Florida's Secretary of Commerce for several years. He went from there to form the Foundation for Florida's Future, which joined forces with the Greater Miami Urban League to establish one of the state's first charter schools. He also co-authored Profiles in Character, a book profiling 14 of Florida's civic heroes, people making a difference without claiming a single news headline. After his election as governor, Jeb Bush put Florida on the forefront of consumer health care advances by signing Medicaid reform legislation in June of 2006. He is a longtime friend of the osteopathic medical profession and the Florida Osteopathic Medical Association. Governor Bush lives in Miami with his wife, Columba, and they have 3 children, and he may mention to you he now has a granddaughter. Please give a warm osteopathic welcome to the Honorable Jeb Bush.
Of introduction. Yes, I am a grandfather. For those grandparents in the room that for the last, maybe 7 or 8 years where it was appropriate for me to be a grandfather, my children were married and they should have been doing their work for their selfish father. Now I know what it's like, and so I've joined the ranks of the very privileged class of grandparents. My granddaughter is named Georgia Helena Walker Bush. Took it to the hat to my dad. So when we're same initials, in case you didn't know. And so when we're together, whenever we're allowed to be doing the babysitting duty, she's 2 months and 2 weeks old, so that's not happening yet. Her nickname will be 41, just in case you're interested. So we welcome you to Florida. As a former governor, I have a shameless duty to shamelessly promote the state, and I hope that you do all the things you have to do at the conference, but that you go spend your hard-earned money, particularly those from out of state, because that's why we don't have a personal income tax in our state. So get out and spend a lot of dough. I also came here to thank you, and I also came to thank 2 particular osteopaths for healing me in the last few years. Dr. Gary Wynn of Southern Maine and Dr. Joel Stein of Fort Lauderdale both worked their miracles on this old body that I was told by a doctor that I probably, if it didn't get better, would have to have an operation, severe neck and shoulder pain, and I was kind of scared about that because I had enough people tell me that that's not a great outcome when you do that. But their professional care made that unnecessary. And if it look like I have good posture, it's because of them, and I thank you all. I think my posture may look better out there than back here. In any case, I wanted to thank them in front of their professional colleagues. I also wanted to pay my respects to Laura Lee Oliva, the widow of Marcelino Oliva, who was a great Florida osteopathic physician. I don't know where she is, but God bless you, and great being with you. Since coming to the conference, I've been asked a few times about my family, about the famous part of my family at least, so I thought I'd give you a quick Bush family update. My mom and dad are doing great. My dad is 87 years old, and my mom has authorized me to tell you that she's younger than my dad. As some of you may know, my father has taken up to celebrating his milestone birthdays, his 75th, his 80th, his 85th, birthdays by parachuting out of a perfectly good plane. And 2 summers ago, he did just that in front of his 14 grandchildren and all of his children. We gathered up in Kennebunkport, Maine to watch him jump. As a small concession to his age, he jumped out at 10,500 feet of altitude, thankfully for us, tethered to a member of the Army Golden Knights parachute team, the best parachute team in the world. And when he landed, this is what he said. There were actually press out there to watch this. This was kind of an interesting thing, I guess, for them. And he said, just because you're an old guy, you don't have to sit around drooling in the corner. Get out and do something. Get out and enjoy life. Pretty good words for an 87-year-old and pretty darn good words, I think, for everybody. And my dad has exemplified that during his life. So my father can't walk very well now, but I guarantee you if he's up and taking nourishment when he's 90, look up, because on June 12th, I think it is, he'll be jumping out of a plane for his 90th birthday. My brother has done something that might even be considered more dangerous than jumping out of a plane, and that's writing a book and going on a book tour. And I'm pleased to report that George's book, Decision Points, has sold 2.5 million copies, and it was on the New York Best Times seller list, much to the chagrin, I imagine, of the New York Times itself, for 24 long weeks. Of course, in our family, the chief officer of all things important, my mother, was quick to tell my brother to remind him that that doesn't even come close to matching the Bush family record of 29 weeks, which was a book called Millie's Book and was authored by my parents' Cocker Spaniel. So here's the speech. Over the last generation of time, perhaps in increments not discernible to the naked eye, our country has kind of lost its competitive edge. It's becoming more topical to talk about that now. In the financial crisis of 2008, I think cascaded out our structural problems for more and more people to see. The looming entitlement time bomb. By the way, those pictures of all those pictures of the 70s, all those young people now are in their 60s and 70s and 80s. I love the big flashy ties and the collars and the sideburns, by the way. I don't know which, we need to get back to kind of retro to the 70s time. The litigation cost explosion, the inability to use immigration as a catalytic converter for long-term sustained growth, our massive deficits, the state and local pension challenges that we face, all of these are reasons why people now are beginning to assess the great challenges we face and that perhaps we need a turnaround. They, along with other challenges, explains why Standard & Poor's, in an unprecedented decision, lowered the creditworthiness of the United States from AAA down. This is not an irreversible situation. We can turn around our country's decline with significant policy changes that focus on long-term economic growth. Having the food fight in Washington about what to cut is not going to solve our problems unless we restore sustained long-term economic growth. But given our history and our culture and our dynamic nature, the United States can grow at a significantly higher sustained rate than the 1.5% that is the run rate today. And I'd like to speak about 3 policy areas where we could make a difference to turn around our country and have sustained growth that aren't necessarily ideological and shouldn't be partisan. One would be to create an energy strategy based on our own resources and own innovations. Second would be to reform our dysfunctional healthcare system. And third would be how to transform our education system so that we can be competitive where knowledge drives wealth, prosperity, and economic activity. The political fights will continue, whether we like it or not. They're going to continue on the deficit and the debt, and the big issues of our time need to be sorted out in Washington. But we can't wait as a nation for those large issues, and those are fights worth having, but we can't wait for Washington